Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending today. We are happy to have our NWEA partners back with us for another session. My name is Heather Rotterman, and I am an assessment and instruction consultant with Wayne Risa, and I'm joined by my colleague, Michelle Wagner, a literacy consultant. And we are happy to turn it over today to Pam and Jeannie and Susan.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Heather. My name is some logistics before we jump in. We're unable to be with you face to face during this meeting. We'd rather that, but we're all online adapting to our new way of life. So let's try to have as much engagement as possible. If there's questions that have come to the surface as you've been looking at your data this fall, please feel free to throw those into, or type them, not throw them, into the chat box throughout the time we're together. So that way we can have more of a conversation occurring as we're sharing some new updates. So feel free and don't be shy about that. Everyone is on mute, but I'm sure at any time if we need to take people off mute to share ideas, we can also do that. So to honor everyone's time and thank you for being patient with us, we did have a couple of technical difficulties, but I think we're all aware of those things that occur now. Before my connection goes bad, because both of my kids are online with school right now, let me go ahead and introduce our team today. Again, it's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you so much for taking this time out of your and we have the 3 weeks before holiday break here. Strategic account manager and team lead with the NWEA team here in Michigan, supporting our partners. And I'm joined by my incredible colleagues, Pam Jones and Susan Klassen, who you probably know of already, but they also support our Michigan partners too. So Pam, if you want to go ahead and take a moment to introduce yourself.
I'm Pam, doing that again. I'm on mute a minute ago. And I am happy to support our partners in Wayne County, many of our community districts. I am your account manager. If I have not met you, hopefully I've met all of you at this point. But as Jeannie said, I've been working for NWA for about a year. And prior to that, I was an administrator, a assistant superintendent, principal, curriculum director, and teacher in Oakland and Macomb counties. So really familiar with the Tri-County area and our Michigan responsibilities. So as Jeannie has said, our hearts go out to all of you. This has been an incredibly difficult year. And so anything we can do to support, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask us. And Susan.
Hi, everybody. My name's Susan Klassen, and I've been with NWA for 12 years now, and I've been working in Michigan for about 6 years. I work with the charter schools. So for any of you folks out there that are charter schools, I am your account manager, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any concerns, issues, or want to talk about your data. I am here to help you.
Excellent. Thanks, Pam and Susan. So let's go ahead and talk about our agenda. What topics are we going to cover today? So we want to show and walk through two of our most powerful tools that were created this fall based on where the world is at right now. And you may have already heard and dipped your toes into these new tools, but we figured having this one-on-one, well, sort of one-on-one time with you, we could walk and go a little deeper with these tools. So some of you, this might be repeat, but we're hoping stick with us because you may be able to find out one more new thing about these tools that you may have not known of. As we walk through this, again, any questions that come up or arise, throw those into the chat box. Susan's going to be moderating the chat. We want to try to be as much one-on-one or in a room with you as possible and as much engaged efforts to support, the reason we wanted to also meet you now is in efforts to support your return to learn plans, which we know that you turned some in. You also have another deadline here coming in February to turn in another round of return to learn plans. These tools will help you design some of those goals that you need to add into your return to plan. So without further ado, let's go ahead and kind of throw out this question to everyone. Feel free to put your answer into that chat. What your thoughts are is, how have you been identifying students impacted by interrupted learning this fall, this spring, wherever your mindset is, but how have you been identifying students so far? Thanks, Jason. So SEL screeners, appreciate that. Been using the growth scores. Any others? Appreciate that. Hothvath, I think I said your last name correct. Mary Ruth, thank you. Using NWEA along with some teacher observations and assessments, wonderful. Scott, thank you. Diagnostic assessments, EWIMS, classroom assessments, wonderful. Lisa, thanks. Yeah, the student mental health screeners. Thanks for sharing that, Lisa. You know, it's pretty incredible when time now digging into what do we currently have or what do we need, right? And that's where our team was at in July and August, trying to think of what will our schools need or what will be most useful. We have been meeting with our schools from, I'm going to turn off my camera because it's saying that I have low connection. Okay, so meeting with our schools from all over the world, these questions kept on coming up, rising to the surface is, as we just talked about, how can we identify students impacted by interrupted learning? What tools do we have? What can we create, perhaps? What can we do to help our students academically recover? And I know that more so as a parent, I've been asking. So I have a child in 6th grade and one in 10th grade. So I'm right there with all the other parents too. And then lastly, how can we connect these recovery goals to appropriate learning targets, right? So now that we have a curriculum map, we have our curriculum plan, how do we make adjustments to that based on what we discover about our students and what they need? So with these questions, our team created these 2 new tools. In the chat, let us know if you have already dipped your toes and started to use these 2 tools, the Recovery and Goal Setting data file and the Growth Goal Explorer tool. So in these tools, what we're going to do is these next few, we're going to walk through a scenario, and Pam's going to walk us through that. But as we do that, please let us know if there are some, again, questions that come to the surface that you're grappling with as you're doing goal setting conversations for the district, the building, the teacher, the student, conversations with parents. This is your time to share with us what else outside of the realm that we're going to show you that you may be needing. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Pam to lead us through these 2 tools.
Okay, thank you so much, Jeannie. Can everybody hear me? Okay, we're going to get started, and these 2 important tools we're going to dig into next are going to help with identifying those particular students in greatest need of support. But many districts that we have worked with are also using them to identify grades or schools or subgroups that have been the most affected, and then help and using that information to reallocate or allocate resources to support those different groups of kids. We're also going to look at how to determine growth goals moving forward. And then how can we help students with goal setting? Because we know that's hugely important to help students continue moving along. So Jeannie, can you go ahead? So if you didn't know yet, this file is accessible only to district and administrator roles. And if you haven't downloaded it, we're going to walk you through that very quickly. So you will go to your map growth reports. It will be the first report that you see. And after you click on it, you're going to identify when the last term was that you tested map growth last year. What's going to be your comparison to this fall? And select that. And then you're going to, if you're a district administrator, select the school you want to look at or schools. And if you're a building administrator, you only see your building. And then you're going to create a CSV report. So going forward, you're going to see that report is going to be ready to be pulled up from your downloaded files in your queue. And then you're going to see something that looks like this. So if you're an Excel guru, this looks just fine to you. But if you're not, like many of us administrators, take a deep breath, because we're going to walk you through step by step how to get through the Excel part. Now, we're not going to do all of that today, but we have included step-by-step Excel directions in this slide deck. So when you get the slide deck, you'll be able to go through and narrow this down and clean it up so that it's much easier for you to look at and get out the information that you want. So let's open it up and we're going to dig in. And the first thing you're going to see is that you can sort by grades and different subgroups. So we're going to start by walking through it, and you're going to see 3 columns, and those 3 columns are going to look for this fall's RIT score, their standard deviation, and the percentile that that student fell into this fall during fall testing. So this particular child we're going to look at scored a 199 with a standard error of 2.9, which is the type of standard error we want it to be under 3. And then they fell into the 25th percentile this fall. Going along, we're going to see the next part that they, in the fall, in last year, go ahead, Jeannie, there you go. In the winter of 2019, their previous percentile was 41%. And they were in the 41st percentile. And we'll see that that is a change of a negative 16 percentile points. So we are looking at that this child this fall had a change in their percentile ranking that they fell into the previous grade level. Now, the nice piece about this data and recovery file is that all of these scores are already put into our 2020 norms for you, so that you're not trying to juggle between last year being the 2015 norms and this year being 2020 norms. So all of the percentiles have been converted to the 2020 norms, and you don't have to manually do that work. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start looking at what kind of growth would this child need if they fell 16 percentile points from last year to this year. What kind of growth would they need to catch back up to the percentile ranking they were in? So first, we're going to look at 50th percentile. That's the percentile ranking that you're used to seeing on all of your map growth reports. So when we make a target for students, it is typically the 50th percentile, which means that 50% of the students from their original RIT band would make that much growth, and 50% of the students would make more growth than that. So that's average growth. But in this COVID year, that may not be enough growth. We know 50th percentile growth keeps them exactly in the percentile they were in before. And we may want to have a stretch goal for this student, especially if we know some other factors or the interventions we're providing for them. So the stretch goal is the 60th percentile growth. And we can see that for this child has to make a little bit better than typical growth, but 11 points, 11 RIT points, that's pretty achievable for many kids in this grade level. And so that might be something we want to look at. Now, to gain back to the percentile they were at previously, how much growth would this child have to make to get back to the 41st percentile they were in last year? Well, the next column shows us that. So the next column shows us that they would have to make 16 RIT point growth to get back to the 41st percentile by this spring. So take a deep breath with that. That's a lot of information. But think about if the child was in the 41st percentile last year, we certainly would like them to be holding their own and be back in that percentile they were at. But when we look at 16 RIT points, that's a huge amount of gain to make during this very tumultuous year. So if we think about how much recovery, how would that compare to other growth, other years? And our last column shows us that. So this is the conditional growth percentile. So is this 16 RIT points realistic for this child to make? He or she would have to make more growth than 84% of the students typically make. So you have to think about your system, your interventions, your resources, and certainly this certain child and the situation. And is that a realistic goal? And maybe that is a realistic goal for your situation, but maybe it's not. And maybe we want to look at 60th percentile growth. But those are the kind of things when we start digging into where do different kids fall, what truly has happened during this interrupted learning for different students, because it has not affected every student the same. So let's think about how that might have affected different kids. So we're going to dig into a specific child and use an example of how you might use this data. Go ahead, Jeannie. So we're going to dig into a particular child at Bryce Canyon Elementary. And going through your file, we're going to show how you look at different columns, specific columns in this file. So we did Bryce Canyon, grade 5. And say I'm a math interventionist and I just want to analyze fall data to see what students have regressed from last year. So pulling up this file, I'm going to sort by schools and choose the school I want. I'm going to sort by grade. Then I'm going to select an achievement level that I want to analyze. So the test percentile, and I can filter by that column. And I want to filter to just the 0 to 30th percentile. So my bottom 30th percentile students, and I'm going to sort by just that. One of our subgroups that we're looking at in this particular building is males. So that's a subgroup that we've been worried about in language arts. And I'm going to sort, and then I'm going to look at what subgroup. So I'm also looking at here, I'm going to look at specifically at mathematics. And you could sort by language arts if that's the area you want to look at, or we could look at mathematics because we know many students regressed in mathematics. When I sort by those 3 areas, I find only 3 students that fall between the 1st and 30th percentile and had a regression that is a significant amount that I want to look at. So Charlie Palmer is one of these students. I'm going to analyze and develop an instructional plan for him because I can see that his test percentile changed by 2 points. And then I can see how much growth he needs to make that up. So step by step walking through this file, and we do take you through that step by step in the slide deck. So I'm going to pause and we're going to think about how we can specifically use this file to narrow down to those subgroups you want to look at, to narrow down to grade levels and subject areas, So how could you use this file to identify students in your system that need the most amount of recovery during this school year? So let's think for a minute and put in the chat what you think about using this file. And Jeannie and Susan, do we have any questions at this point?
Nope, no questions yet.
So we went through that quickly. Can anybody put in the chat what you think you could use this file for as you narrow down through the Excel steps to get down to a subgroup of students? Are people still filtering? Can we get some feedback from anybody? Thank you, Sherry. Yes, that's a great, the AE column is great, is a great way to quickly see who fell below last year's scores. Absolutely, Sean. That's exactly how you could prioritize interventions. We just published a MEMSPA article where with 2 principals on the west side of the state, we walked through this recovery file. And then they went back to their staffs and they walked through it with their staff and talked about how they could use it. And one of the things they noticed was high achieving students, in one case, had the most regression. And so their intervention was really focusing on study skills at home. What do those kind of kids need to be most successful in this interrupted learning situation if they're learning remotely? And how do you keep their motivation for them to continue to excel? So it can convert to a lot of ideas of how you could use this file.
Michelle, your question about converting to Google Sheets, I'm pretty certain it can. Double check, but I'm fairly certain. Susan, do you know if it does?
Yeah, these files are just CSV files, which should upload into any kind of spreadsheet software just fine. So it's not limited to just using it in Excel. You should be able to use it in other formats as well.
Thank you, Susan. That's a great answer. So I like what Scott was saying, identify areas of critical need. Okay, so we took a little breath. We thought about how we might use this file. We're going to continue with our scenario of Charlie, but now we're going to do the next step of if we're digging in with individual students, the next step that we know is super important is goal setting. We know from the John Hattie work how valuable goal setting is. So we're going to dig into the second tool, which is our Map Growth Goal Explorer tool. The Map Growth Goal Explorer is a free online tool. And so what's really helpful about it, yes, we do goal setting in our profile, in our student profile, but the teacher has to be logged in and it's a teacher report. Whereas this is an online resource that teachers could be in a Google setting with kids, with parents, and do goal setting, and they could all be pulling up this tool at the same time. So you simply Google it, and it's called the Goal Setting Explorer tool, and it's easy to find. So we're going to go into that. So if you're like me, and many of us who are trying to lose those COVID pounds, we realize that goals are only useful if they're realistic and if they're actionable. So we want to think about how do we help kids set realistic goals and actionable goals. So again, going back to the same thing that was in our data and recovery file, we're going to show 50th percentile growth. We're going to show 60th percentile growth. And then what would that COVID growth look like for this student? So let's find that right balance. So looking at Charlie again, We're going to open the Goal Explorer tool and enter his information from the recovery and goal setting data file. We're going to enter the state as obviously Michigan for all of our students, and his fall RIT score, and the subject that we want to look at. So on our case, we had Charlie, and we wanted to look at his particular growth. And we scroll down and we can see how realistic it is. So the next slide, Jeannie, there we go. So now it shows him a great graph of how his achievement is going to look if he makes these different types of goals. So his average growth, he would need to make 9 points, and he would stay in the same percentile range that he is currently in. But we know from looking at this graph that that's not going to be enough growth to get him to state proficiency or college readiness. So what kind of growth would he need to make for that? And that would be setting a custom growth goal. But is that realistic? So then we also want to look at how many students actually make that amount of growth in 1 year. And maybe this can't be a 1-year goal for Charlie. Maybe it needs to be a multi-year goal for Charlie. But we can design step-by-step things that Charlie can do. What are the specific details that Charlie's going to do to make that growth over 2 or 3 years? If his goal is to get into Michigan State, or his goal is to get to a certain college that he wants to go to. And then how can we help him attain those goals? And this is a great activity, especially in this remote world, when we know students need that motivation to keep going, as they're often doing asynchronous work and often need that support to continue that asynchronous work to get to the goals they want to be at. Okay, Jeannie. The other great part about this goal setting tool is that on that same goal setting website, it will dig in for parents or even for your teachers, some support for how do you write achievable goals. So what is MAP growth? It kind of gives them some background, and it gives them some background on the RIT score. It helps parents and communities understand, helps the kids even understand. And then it helps talk about how to make an achievement and growth mean. How do you make a achievable goal? And so that's really important for kiddos. And then there's some great resources at the bottom that are also just to continue that goal setting journey that we want to make sure kids are engaging in. So let's take a minute and process this. As you think about these, are any of these tools things that you think would be very helpful? At what level in your organization do you think they would be the most helpful? And where can you see different members of your organization using these tools? Does anybody want to jump in and think about the Growth Explorer tool, the Goal Explorer tool? Okay, so now that we've done the data and recovery file, and we've done the Goal Explorer tool, let's think about how these two things can connect to each other to help us identify students impacted by school closures, how we can help those students begin their academic recovery, and how can we connect these recovery goals to appropriate learning targets in the classrooms and to goals for kiddos to work toward as they continue throughout this year.
Excellent, Pam. We actually did get a few comments before we head into the next section. I just wanted to compliment the share out. So Joe saying that using the tool for building in classroom level, excellent. And then Scott was saying helpful for the Ready by Grade 3 law and projecting what, a goal for this spring grade level proficiency. Excellent, Scott. And then Sean, Thank you, all of you, for chiming in. Find the Goal Explorer tool to be a bit more user-friendly than the student profile report. You know, it's interesting you say that, Sean, because that's a conversation internally we've been also having, is how could we have that Explorer tool inside the system. We are also, and this is nothing immediate, so let me preface this, but, you know, throwing around the idea of having a portal for students, and that's one of those tools that is like in the right direction of having students log in and manipulating that Explorer tool to really, you know, figure out a goal for themselves. I know I sat down with my my sophomore daughter and worked through that tool with her. So excellent point.
Yes, absolutely, Jeannie. And several of the districts that I've been working with, this is also a great way to connect to your family. So one of the conversations we had after remote testing in the fall was people were concerned about families interfering, maybe in a little bit too helpful way or not the most helpful way. And so now if we go back to using our family report, engaging families in data conversations, using the data, the recovery, the growth goal with students and their families to engage in that positive conversation about goal setting prior to winter testing, that can be a really useful tool to help set parents up for successfully supporting their students during testing in the winter, instead of providing maybe some extra help that was not helpful. And so we really want to engage parents in positive data conversations and help them understand what their role is in helping their child be the most successful they can be. So I think this is a great tool for that. So we're going to go on. And the last thing I want to share, since we've had so much, we've gone through a ton of information, is the question we hear the most from teachers is, what can I do with my data? How can I make it actionable and make this quick and easy to use the data? Well, NWEA has a great solution to that. And the solution is many solutions. So we believe very heavily in the fact that we don't want to box you into a one size fits all solution. We know that every student is different. Every community is different. People have different needs. And as we get through this recovery, those needs are going to grow and change. And so you don't want to buy one curriculum solution for everybody and think that that's going to last forever. But what we want to do is connect this really great map growth data to a variety of resources. Hopefully many of these resources or some of these resources are already in your district. You're already using them. Your teachers are familiar with them and comfortable with them, and it's not a new learning curve for them. But we have an entire list of instructional connections or curriculum providers that we connect to, and we can help you connect your map growth data to provide individual learning pathways for students. And this is an aspect of map growth. I have to tell you, as an administrator for 8 years, I had no idea that this even existed. But it's been around and it's getting better and better, and the connections are getting easier and easier. And so we want to make sure that you know these resources are there. So if you go to nwea.org, and go to instructional connections, this is just a sampling. We actually have 19 different curriculum providers that we connect our data to, and you can see the entire list. And you certainly can contact any of the three of us for more support with that too. If you're using any of these tools currently in your district, we want to help you use them better and connect your data to them. So Jeannie, I don't know where we're at with time, if we have time to go to the instructional connections or if we just want to go to the end and answer questions. This is a live link. So if you click, when you get the slide deck to NWEA instructional connections, it will take you right to that website and you can see the entire list.
I'm just curious. I know there's only a few mentioned here, a handful. in the chat, share with us, what learning resources do you use currently at your building, your district level that your teachers, you notice, have been using through these last few months? And then I'll go live. I'll go into that link as people are shouting in the chat, or not shouting, texting. I keep on saying, throw it out to the chat. I guess I'll work on my terminology here. So in the chat, go ahead and tell us which instructional resources that you use or you have partnerships with. And I will bring up so of course there's Khan and Uzella. This is a new one, a new partnership here, Teach to our team, our instructional connections team, is constantly in the works of building more and more partnerships. So stay attuned, because we'll probably have some more announcements of new partnerships coming up late winter and the spring.
Jeannie, I don't know if you meant to go live, but we are not seeing anything
Oh,
but pictures.
thank you. I forgot to share. It would be good to go live, huh? Okay. Okay, now can you see it?
Yes, we can see it now.
Excellent. So what do we got in the chat here? Literacy Footprints, eSpark, Think Central, Read Live, Math. Yep, go ahead.
Edgenuity and Khan. Newzella. Newzella is a great ELA program, if any of you have that.
Mm-hmm.
And Edgenuity, we know we have a lot of districts with Edgenuity or Edmentum, especially this year.
Scott, with IXL, I know they're not on the list here, but you can manually use the map growth data. My daughter's school uses IXL, so I know that well.
And Matthew, we have a special connection with McGraw-Hill, so let's definitely connect and talk about that.
Yes, excellent.
Okay,
well,
perfect.
Way to go, everyone. It's wonderful to see. And again, we'll continue to add to this list. I know we added one for, here it is, social emotional mind print. So just wanted to, that's a new partnership that just became final last month, I believe, right, Pam, Susan, last month?
Yes, yeah, that's
okay.
one of our newest connections.
Yep.
Okay. Let's head back to, and again, like Pam said, reach out to us if there's any questions on connecting that data. All right. So heading into, I know that, or we know that fall testing just wrapped up for some of you. For others, it's been wrapped up for a few weeks now. And as we prepare for sort of the unknown coming up for winter, and I say that meaning some of us will be remote testing, some of us will be both in person as well as remote. So one of the things we strongly want to let you know is we are here to support you. If you look through our resources and you notice that there's something that's not there that you need, please don't hesitate to call, email, text. Well, I'm not sure if they can text. If you have our cell phones, yes, you could text us, but we are extremely responsive, and we want to make sure that we are well supporting you through the winter and as well as we begin to think of spring testing. We have done some updates. So some of you have been asking for this. Wanted to announce this first. Hopefully all of you on today's session received an email from either our president, our CEO, I meant to say, Chris Munich, announcing our new research study, our second phase of COVID-19 study that is now available. And maybe Susan, what you can do, I have the link here in the slide, but maybe Susan, you can add the link into the chat for them. If you're interested in looking through that study, it is available. If you're interested in hearing the breakdown, summation of that, on December 15th, we're having a webinar with our research team at 1 Eastern time. You hopefully got an email today inviting you to that webinar on the 15th. To register, again, if you can't attend at that time, if you register, you'll get the recording. So these are the two top what was studied, goodness, lots of words, is the impact of COVID on student achievement and growth, and then the compensation of students who tested this year and how that changed compared to last year. It's a very interesting study. Highly recommend you taking a look at it. The other thing that's been updated is our remote testing resources. So we have a new landing page. So again, you'll receive this slide deck that has all these live links into it. But our new landing page, let me go ahead and go live to that landing page so you see it. This is the new landing page, and it's just—
You need to reshare, Jeannie.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, so in our new landing page, you can either go to reading fluency or growth. And here we just laid it out a lot cleaner was the comments that we got back from you. So thank you. So here you could see that you could even, if you have any questions about the student login, quick, easy to get to it, as well as the administrator login. But as you move down the page, we have revised some of these sample templates, so feel free to take a look. Many of them, most of you used for the fall, and yes, they're still there. And if there's been some updates, we have updated those templates and added them in here. The other thing that we wanted to just make sure to be clean and concise is just the steps on testing remotely. That was the #1 question we received, so we made sure to lay out the steps. And the biggest thing that we've heard that was a success is, as many of you did, is communicating with parents and students on the assessment, as well as keeping the testing groups in manageable testing sessions. So again, reach out to us if you have any questions with that, but most of all of the resources are right here. And if there's any that we need to design and create, just let us know. Now, with that said, there is one new update that you would have received in our November technical guide, and that is the new pop-up URL. That was another thing that we were hearing from a lot of you, is the pop-up blocker was an issue. So we created a new URL that has no pop-up blocker to it. However, one of the things we do want to mention, here, let me show this slide because this condenses it, is that in the URL no pop-up blocker, that is not, there is no reporting tool that's connected to it. So there's no in-product reporting functionality that enables you to track which URL option is associated with individual test events. So in other words, as you use either of these URLs in the upcoming testing of, window, you may want to track manually which one your students are using or which one you have your students use. So, any questions with that? All right, I'm seeing no questions come through, so I'll go ahead and move forward. So the good news is we created a new URL, no pop-up, but you'll just need to track it manually. All right, so Some other exciting news that I believe some of you online have had some of your faculty sign up for are our new 1-hour seminar series that starts actually this Friday from 1 to 2. So as we have been speaking with you as well as others throughout Michigan, the lack of time for PL is definitely there. It's something that was brought up to us. However, the need of understanding of how to utilize the data is also there. So what we did is we met with our professional learning team and we designed a new series. It accommodates your time and the time of your faculty team. So now your team can actually up these sessions and then together as they come back as a subject area team or a coaches session, they can share out what they learn from these 1-hour sessions. So whoever attends these sessions will receive note catchers. So all the notes, the slides that go with it and the resources, so that way they can share it with the rest of the team. Now, we were also able to lower the cost because we are piloting this. Woohoo! So it's $19 per person to join one of these sessions. And the same person can join all 6, or you can split it up amongst the team. So really excited with this. And yes, you can continue to register your team for any of these upcoming sessions. I think the December 11th session registration closes next Monday. Oh no, next Wednesday, pardon. All right, and just wrap in reminders. So again, feel free to join us for that COVID research webinar on the 15th at 1. And then another webinar that may be of interest to you is on January 19th. So you'll probably receive that invite when you come back from the holiday break. But that webinar is going to be assessing student learning in the new normal. And we're going to send the information on who's going to be on that panel for that webinar. In the interim, please let us know what ideas, topics that you'd like us to meet with you on. Even if that means that you would like us to set up a time where you have moments with our research team. If there's questions that you would like us to ask our research team to join us for, we'd be more than happy to set that up. So let us know. Anything else I forgot?
No, Jeannie, I think that is really great. Does anybody have any last questions?
Yes, Yvonne on the sketch, good question. So what we have found with the sketches is we could provide you the details of the the 1-hour sessions, and you would be able to do that paperwork that's needed for the sketch. Every school organization approaches that slightly different, but we can get you the details so you can fill out that paperwork. Great, and just like Michelle and also Susan mentioned, we are recording this, so you will get the recording link soon, along with these slides that have all of. And again, don't hesitate to reach out to us anytime. That's what we're here. And if there's additional resources you need, let us know.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate all of you joining in with us today and participating and jumping on the chat.
Absolutely. Thanks. And if we don't talk before the holidays, happy holidays to you. I'm trying to convince my girls to go caroling. Maybe we can just do a caroling session. Bye, everyone. Thank you again, Michelle and Heather.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.